What's up, YouTube? Pastor Matt here. Thanks for checking into my YouTube channel. Um, the cool pastor, oxymoron or just a regular moron? We're going to talk about that here in just a minute. But before we do, let me just welcome you to Gospel Fellowship PCA. If you're anywhere near the north of Pittsburgh, come check us out. We're a Bible-believing church, Reformed in theology. We love Jesus. We're on a mission to share the good news of the gospel with the world. Okay, so to be a cool pastor, is that an oxymoron? Well, you know what an oxymoron is, right? It's when you have two words that kind of contradict themselves, like jumbo shrimp. You get the idea. Well, can a pastor ever be cool, and is that a good idea? Well, we've probably all seen pastors that are trying really hard to be cool. We've seen guys who are in their 50s or 60s dressing like they're in their 20s or 30s, wearing their skinny jeans and their hard part haircuts. And we've all kind of said to ourselves, man, this guy's trying a little bit too hard to be on the cutting edge of cool. We've seen pastors do series on Star Wars instead of books of the Bible, and all that's just a little bit abrasive. Remember a couple of years ago, I wrote an article by this title. It was called The Cool Pastor, Oxymoron, or Just a Regular Moron. You can still get the article, by the way. It was published on the Aquila Report, and I'll put it in the description of this video. But the problem I was addressing at that time was a very famous pastor who, if I told you what his name is, half of you would be mad at me and unsubscribe because he's a pretty cool dude. And he went on a tour for his new book. And what struck me as odd is this pastor rented out a huge tour bus with his own face plastered all over it, real big face on the bus, the name of his book and the tour. And he went from city to city doing these autograph signings, and then he'd teach a message on the theme of the book. And I saw this and I thought, man, I wonder if we're just trying too hard to be cool. Because here's the problem. When the church tries to be cool, it will always be two steps behind the world. The world does cool better than the church. The world will always do cool better than the church because the world defines what cool is. The world defines what standard of clothing is acceptable, what hairstyles are acceptable, what architectural styles are acceptable, what brands are in style and acceptable, whether that be Starbucks or Nike or Adidas or whatever it is, what kind of music is acceptable. And so the world is always setting the standard for what cool is. And whenever the church tries to imitate that, what happens is that the church ends up looking like a second-rate attempt to try to stay current. And so I would say, let's throw that model off and quit trying to be cool all the time with our architecture and our sanctuaries, trying to be cool with our clothing styles when we're preaching, up there, ripped jeans and graphic tees. Remember those graphic tees? It always just looks a little bit artificial to me. When you've got a pastor up there and he's got his Bible in one hand and a Starbucks brand coffee cup in the other, just to let you know that he's relevant. I've always just thought that was a little bit goofy, if I'm completely honest. We have all seen people that are trying too hard to be relevant. And for me, that's just a little bit off-putting. So I wrote about that in my article, which I'll link again in the description of this video. Please go check that article out. It's still relevant these several years later. But let me tell you what I think is cool in a pastor. How about being faithful to your wife? How about a pastor who's got decades of marriage experience and his marriage to his wife is a model to the congregation of piety, fidelity, compassion, and care for one another? That, I think, is commendable in a pastor, not his skinny jeans. How about a pastor who preaches the Bible faithfully week in and week out, working through books of the Bible, preaching expository sermons? They're not TED Talks, they're not overly clever, they're not themed on whatever the cool movie series is today or whatever's happening on Netflix. We're not doing a Stranger Things series or whatever else is relevant at the moment, but preaching faithfully through books of the Bible, not dodging the difficult passages, not overstepping the stuff that he knows may come across as culturally abrasive. That, my friend, is a cool pastor. How about a pastor who has a long tenure in his church? How about that? I happen to be succeeding two men in the pulpit here at Gospel Fellowship who have 25 plus year tenures. And so I owe them a debt of gratitude for the example of longevity and faithfulness to one congregation that they've served. How about that as a standard of coolness in the church today? I like that. I like a man who can weather the storms, who can see the church through various trials, difficulties, and stages of its journey. I like that better than a guy with a hip latte in his hand while he's preaching. How about a man who has a reputation of being loving and faithful and compassionate to the people in his flock? He's there at the hospital. He's standing by the bed of the hospice. He's there when the babies are born, when they're baptized, when they graduate. How about a man who has a reputation amongst his people as being concerned for their welfare, who is genuinely a friend to those who need a friend and is there for you in the moments of your greatest despair? That, to me, is a cool pastor. I don't need skinny jeans. Don't give me any lattes. Feel free to use a pulpit, an old-fashioned one. That's fine with me too. You don't need some kind of a hip stand or coffee stand up there. You don't need some graphics or branding or labeling or a tour bus to be cool. How about faithfulness? How about fidelity? That's what I think is a cool pastor. And don't settle for any cheap rip-off imitation substitutes of what it means to be cool as defined by the world standards. Well, I'd like to know what you think about this topic. If you like my content, give it a like and a share. Comments, that always helps out. These kind of videos aren't going to be favored in YouTube's algorithm, so you got to share it the old-fashioned way if my stuff is good. But I'd love to hear what you think, so feel free to mention it in the comment section below. Thanks for checking in. Love you lots, and we will talk to you later.